All right, hi everyone. So you've had my intro to who I am. Virtual Store Trials, or VST, is kind of a Ron Seal type name. So we work a lot with building shelves, fixtures. So it might feel quite niche as a topic, but hopefully some of the things we're going to talk about will resonate more widely. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we do what we do, and then I'm going to give you a bit of a potted history of how we've got to where we've got to, how it works, and then some thoughts about the future. So just to start with, it's a bit of audience participation. Can anyone tell me where we are on this map? Germany, yes. Very near Stuttgart, exactly. And there's, a place called Haslock, if I said it correctly. Does anyone know why Haslock is important? Because it's near a border. No, it's important because it was the most representative part of city within Germany for a certain period of time. So brands used to send their new products to the retailers there to test them out, to see whether they would be successful, to make the arguments to retailers, to then roll them out to the rest of Germany. I believe that in this country, anyone take a guess of what sort of city or town this country's representative would be?
Often tested in Holland because it's far away from everything.
Yeah. I think it was Didcot for a while as well. Yeah, so like it's sort of a little bit more in the Midlands, less around the edges of the country. So in-store testing has been around for a really long time. It's great in the sense that you get your products in the hands of real customers, but it has some downsides. Testing in-store can be really slow. It can take sort of up to 6 months to make an agreement to even get it into store, get it in there, and actually then enough time for enough people to have bought it to look at the actual results. It's expensive in the sense that you have to make the product, get it out there, have the agreements with retailers to do that work, and arguably not robust. It is pretty robust. Like, you've got real people buying it, you've got like that understanding of what they're doing. But I guess as an antidote to this, that's where online shelf testing or fixture testing came from, and to say we wanted it to be faster, less expensive, and more robust. But the reality is that testing with virtual reality can also be pretty slow, pretty expensive, and it's not always robust. Like, you might be talking to, say, 100, 200 people to get an answer on whether something is going to be successful or not. But it's important because we know those big stats around like 95% of new products don't really survive a year, that kind of stuff. Also, we want to try and avoid these kinds of products, which you may have seen. I believe this is maybe from quite a long time ago, but the Clairol Touch of Yogurt shampoo, which was recalled because people did what with it? They ate it. Yep. It's more of a question on humanity than anything else. The Cosmopolitan yogurt, which I was talking to Katie about this, I thought this would do better as a person that grew up in the 90s. Cosmopolitan was a big publication at that point, but no, the yogurt bombed, wasn't working. And then the infamous Colgate beef lasagna, which I did check whether Colgate was a brand in other markets that could sort of diversify out into food like this, but no, it is very much an oral health brand. So that's why we kind of created VST. We wanted to be able to test these kind of products before they get into store, and we wanted it to be an antidote to this kind of slow, expensive, and not robust, and want it to be much faster, more accessible in terms of price, I guess, but also accessible in terms of who can take part in the research. When, obviously if you're in an in-store, it's just those people that visit that store. We wanted it to be much more representative, and we also wanted it to be robust. So we wanted to make sure that anything that we do, we talk to lots and lots of people about it. And that's important, notwithstanding those products that were launched, but also because still, almost 3/4 of shoppers make their decisions at shelf, category dependent. But it does, shopper research is quite often not forgotten about, but it's seen as a separate thing to consumer research, when actually really these people are often exactly the same people, and they are making their decisions at shelf. So those shelves need to look great. So I hope you can agree that one does look pretty good, and we needed to make sure they looked good. But back in 2017, which I think is yesterday, but it's almost 10 years ago, our shelves did not look good. So I'm going to show you what they look like and the kind of the technology that we put in place to make them look better, nor were they easy to build. So we started out, bear in mind this was before I joined the company, so I can take no credit for the fact that we used photos. But back in 2017, our first fixture visuals were photos. You could argue they're realistic. They are very accurate, but they're not necessarily representative of the most common fixture that people might see. They are just a photo from a Sainsbury's. You don't actually know if they are truly robust in that sense. And if you have a bigger shelf, you can kind of see here, this is stitched together at the edges. So they don't look as good as they could do. It massively also relied on humans going in, taking those photos and editing them as we went along. Sometimes we had clients supplying their own visuals, which arguably also did look better. But you can see here we have no prices on these. We've got sort of very uninteractive shelf as well. That's one of the other things that we wanted to make sure that you had within research, was a much more interactive shelf. And sometimes when they were supplied by clients, they also looked bad. And so again, if you go back to that point about how can you make the research robust and usable, actually like putting this in front of respondents isn't a great respondent experience. It's not really going to give you great answers. It's that old one of you put bad things in, you get bad things out. So in 2018, we began using Photoshop to create them from scratch. Much more flexible, looks a little bit better, but it does lack an awful lot of realism. And again, respondent experience, it was a very flat image when it actually went into survey as well. We got better at it, because we're humans, we get better at Photoshop. You can get, start to look better. But again, all those same problems still existed. And in reality, this was our CTO building them. These are his words. It became unmanageable. He didn't want to be building shelves. He wanted to be doing way more interesting things with data. He wanted to be building other parts of our business. So, as he says, if you give him the shit task long enough, he will find a solution to it. So we try and give him the bad things quite a lot, because then he will find a solution and make things better. So we moved away from Photoshop, and actually he developed a piece of software where the input is an Excel. We'll be moving away from Excel soon, I believe, and that can go into SVG. So all of the information in that Excel is the information like a unique ID, which is great because if you're taking a unique ID through your whole system, then you know there's accuracy in your data. You have a good name associated, you have an accurate price, and here are dimensions. And then all of the images on this would have been like manually found. I'll come on to how we find them now in a minute. But that actually produced as a much better looking shelf. And if you can imagine, it's really nice. What you do is you just pull your Excel in and it builds out your shelf, like within 2 seconds, which is wonderful. So this was much faster to build, but our our dimensions were a bit of a challenge at this point, so we had to sort of assume a lot of our dimensions. And it was still just on his machine. So we put it on the internet, mainly so that we could use it in the client-facing team, get it off Josh's plate and onto our plate, which is great. It's a really easy tool for us to use. And what we could do once we had it is develop a load of incremental features. So one of the things which we talk about a lot, which probably no one else really thinks about, is accuracy of dimensions of products. So what we were able to do at this point was to actually ingest these things called PSA files, which are supply chain files, which have got dimensions of products, essentially. So we were able to start ingesting those, which is a shortcut to dimensions, which is great. We don't have to assume dimensions, we know they're accurate. And we're using like direct from retailer data or direct from brand data, so we know that what we're doing is correct. We were able to develop a load of different types of shelf edge labels. So you can see here, I think this one's got a promotion on it, for example. We had more currencies, more backgrounds, so we were able to actually do a lot more with the tool. We then actually won a really big agency client win, who themselves were creating their shelves with Photoshop, and they needed a big reduction in time, which the tool allowed them to do. And with that, we developed a load more stuff in there around drag and drop, so you can build your shelves more effectively. We put in a lot more API integrations to retailer websites for image downloads, and also to other product indexes. More backgrounds, more currencies, and this idea of 2.5D, so the stack back of products on here. So since 2017, it's come a long way, from photos all the way through to that. And if we go back to the kind of doing more with less theme, we're doing so much more. We've created a much better looking, a much easier to work with tool that takes a day from the input to the output, whereas before if you're making that in Photoshop, I don't know, I'm no Photoshop user, but it will probably take you a lot longer, and we know it is way more accurate. The other thing that's really great about it is that because we ingest those PSA files from retailers, we know that they're their most common plans as well. So this is where we call it Fixture Visualizer, but it sits at the center of all our workflows now. We get retail data feeds in direct from retailers. We get PSA files direct from brands. We sadly still get Excels and CSVs direct from brands, and sometimes photos, if I'm being fully honest. But we pretend that doesn't happen. And product indexes as well. So where our clients may have product indexes, we can link into their APIs to pull in from those. And we use those, well, my team uses those for research and shelf tests, but a lot of brands use them to output images and outputting it back into Excel or back into PSA files so that a client can then take it back to Tesco and say, we've built it out, it looks like this, we've tested it, this is, you Tesco, go and put that into your supply chain data now. So it does, it looks good, but does it actually predict behavior? Is it any good at actually doing the job that we want it to do? I just thought I'd give you a quick example of where we validated the results. So this is a US test for digestive health. So you can see that in the US, there's something like, if you compare that to how much digestive health products we have in our country, it's an awful lot more over in the US. That was the shelf that we tested. We had a load of EPOS data direct from the retailer, so we were able to do EPOS and results and our results comparison. So we looked at the value share for both of those two outputs, if you like. And you don't need to look at all of the detail here, but essentially we saw kind of on average the percentage point difference about 1.6 on value share for brand, and by subcat 1.1. We're pretty happy with that, and the retailer themselves was also pretty happy with that, and we continue to have an ongoing relationship with this retailer in terms of testing their fixtures. Joe Lycett here, talking about luxury yogurt. Last year I spent a lot of time thinking about yogurt and the way that you segment yogurts, which was actually way more interesting than you think it's going to be. So yogurt is actually growing. I would have thought that yogurt is in most fridges, but actually it's a big growth driver for a lot of the retailers at the moment. And so they've actually redefined it based upon health, which is really interesting, I think, because health is such a big thing for all of the retailers and all the brands. But they're redefining what yogurt looks like. So you see more protein, you see more kefir, you see more Greek and natural yogurt on there. And interestingly, you actually see more luxury yogurt as well, because yogurt is now your healthy dessert, but you maybe don't want the healthiest. So you have more luxury yogurts on there. Joe I say here didn't know that was the thing, but it is, it's great. The work that we did actually had a load of the recommendations implemented by Tesco in their major range review most recently. So that was a great success of it. And if anyone have dogs here? Not as many, half the population have a dog. What are you all doing? Anyway, since you don't have dogs, this is a new category segmentation which was also implemented in Tesco, which we're awaiting results of how well that's done, but they changed it based on how people are interacting with their dogs. So as people without dogs, do you have children? Most people treat their dogs like a member of the family, right? And that has really, so that's a growing trend. And so pet food, within here you can see it's not just about treats anymore, but it's about how do you occupy your dog because you're trying to work and they're asking you to go for a walk. You give them a treat. You give them a reward treat. So it's starting to like reflect the type of things that you do with your dog a lot more. So that was a really nice one that I enjoyed working on as an owner of a dog. There we go. Okay, so can we go further with less? Let's do myself a time check. Cool. There's three things that, well, there's more than three things that we think about a lot, but these are three examples of some of the things that we're thinking about. This is a play around with 3D environments. So our environments at the moment are 2.5D. So it's a 2D sort of entry into the online environment. But this here is an example of a 3D environment. So you can move around this fixture, but the fixture itself doesn't look great. You can see this is like a first. This is our CTO saying, here you go, what do you think? Should it be better? And we all go, yeah, it should absolutely be better. This is not something we can put in front of respondents yet. But actually, I'm not convinced that we're going to spend a huge amount of time on it right now. It might be something we come back to in a year's time. Because if we go back to that thinking of fast, accessible, and robust, we know that we're robust already. And we know that we're accessible in terms of people coming and being able to do the research, and we know that we're fast in building it. Now, we can build these pretty fast, but is it accessible to all our respondents? Probably not, because it's going to have to download a lot slower. We won't be able to do it on as many devices and that kind of stuff. So it's probably not the biggest priority for us at the moment. Generative AI probably will be in terms of shelf building. So again, I feel like I talk about such niche things. This is very annoying to us when we're building fixtures. And quite often you have these side images. And then we spend a lot of time, if we have those side images, a human searching for a better image or in Photoshop turning it round. We think that probably within the next 6 months we'll probably be able to use Gen AI to recreate this. You can see right now it does a pretty good job. It's not exactly right. I don't think Kellogg's would be happy if we were to put that picture on our fixture. But we think that in the future we'll be able to actually just prompt that through on any of those side images. So like an energy drink fixture, they are awful for it. It's all side images, for example. So we think that will be very promising for us, making it faster and cheaper for us to build the fixtures again. Where we see probably the most potential is around retailer data. So we have a direct feed of retailer data, so planogram data from Tesco already that comes into our data lake. And we're looking to set that up from as many of these retailers as we possibly can. What that will unlock, we believe, is faster setup because we'll be able to just access retailer planogram data very, very quickly. Accuracy of insight, because we know it is the most common plan. We know that it is the correct dimensions. We know it's the most up-to-date information coming from those retailers. And in reality, on the kind of customer-facing side of it, it's better work because the retailer, it's almost like a lovely closed loop. It comes directly out of the retailer. We test it, goes back to the brand, goes back to the retailer, and it's closed loop back. So that's where we see the biggest potential for kind of the shelf testing to be maybe not faster or more accessible, but it will be a more robust and a better application of the work. I always talk really fast in these things, so thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Charlotte. How did the dogs reach the top shelves?
You get an Alsatian and then you finish with a Jack Russell.
I do have a question. I love shopper research. I haven't really involved in it for a long time, so it's been interesting to see how it's been changing. And I think I love it because as a kind of research technologist, there's always a lot of potential to use tech. What happened to the idea of maybe using AR? Because it seemed like in that way you could create the shelves virtually, but you could be in the real life environment.
I think people have looked into AR for it. I think it goes back to that, making sure that who you're talking to is representative, right? So how do you make sure that everybody that is in your category could access a survey that's in AR? Because if they've only got a mobile device or they don't have enough data, something like that, I think that's quite a heavy way to do the research. I think we would, I can see why and how it would be a really good application of AR, but whether that works better for, I think, walking retailers through it or selling it in than it does maybe for the research itself.
Okay, Jerome.
Yeah, I'm interested. I know it's more realistic, and then you get better data. But what are you measuring exactly? Do you do like coin joint, and you look at price sensitivity or something like that? Or so, what are you measuring? How do you know if it's a success or
Yeah, I didn't cover that at all, did I? So the way it works is that we recruit category shoppers in to a survey. So in that sense, it's a very typical piece of market research. You recruit your respondents, and then you put them in front of a shelf. And that shelf is quite interactive. You can scroll side to side, up and down, you can zoom in and out, and you can pick up products and put them back. So what we're measuring is, once someone's picked a product up, do they put it in their basket? And then they check out. So at a aggregated level, so we maybe have 500 to 1,000 people shopping every fixture that we test. We look at total category spend and units because, and we compare that to our test scenario. So that might be your current set. If we go for yogurt, that's your current yogurt as it is in store right now versus your new category segmentation. You say, right, the total category has grown by 5%. What's driving that growth? So you can then break it down by the different categories and say, actually, we gave more space to Greek and natural. That's grown by 10%. That's the biggest driver of growth for the whole category. So you can start to identify what parts of the shelf are driving growth or decline, for that matter. So if you take all of your space away from something and the sales fall out at the bottom of that, that's causing your decline. So you're essentially answering that question of like, does my merchandising improve the category spend or units?
So people have budget, or because I imagine whatever the sector, the placement on the top shelf, bottom shelf, it's going to work roughly the same way.
Yeah.
So what, are you testing the packaging?
We test some packaging, but the majority of what we test is where things sit and how much space they have. And if I go back to that yogurt one, what we tested was like increased space to Greek and natural, to kefir, to protein. So we increase space, and then you take space away from like Muller corners, something else, whatever. So you're not testing packaging. You're just you're testing space, and you're also testing whether you can test new products within that. So by just simply allocating more space to a category, does that increase spend? Or do you have to increase space through ranging, for example? Yeah, so it covers all of that. We do pricing as well. Not as much in recent years because pricing has been just so volatile anyway. You can't really get ahead of that as a question. But you can use it to look at varying prices and almost like in that Van Westendorp way, like at what point does it get so cheap people stop buying it or so expensive that people stop buying it? But you have to be very specific in changing just one product's price or one range's price to answer a question like that.
Thank you.
Hi there. Just an observation, really. I just love the story that you've kind of gone through where the need of your business has driven that innovation, and you've gone through these small incremental processes and looking at the problem holistically. Like, we want to get a better output, so how can we get a better output? And then you go back down the chain as much as you can, like looking at the files coming in or the data coming in and questioning, can we do this better? And I suppose it's not a question, it's just an observation that I think it's a wicked way that you've done this, and it must be really working for you because you've built it in such an agile way. So.
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of the credit probably goes to Josh, who's not here. Maybe he's watching. He'll be happy. I thank him. So he's our CTO, and I think that's how he works. Is that like if it's not working for us, and we say it enough times that it's not working for us, then they're a very solution-based engineering team, which is a really nice way to work. And I think we've got, interestingly, to a point recently where our technical debt has really, really reduced, so we're able to really push on with those things as well. And that's really empowering to us as a client-facing team, because a lot of our clients use Fixture Visualizer as well. Like, it's in the hands of our clients. They're making fixtures and then testing them in shelf tests. So they're using all of those developments too. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, so Gare, and then we'll finish with Neil.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Go for it. Sorry.
Very interesting stuff. I was just curious, when you run a questionnaire and you're presenting this to people, are you doing showing different versions, like if you have 1,000 people or whatever, or is it A/B testing, or 100 of them seeing the dog food according to treats and things, and another 100 are seeing just how does that work?
It's A/B testing, so it's always a different one in front of each person, and so the differences between them aren't tiny increments really. They are usually quite substantial changes, because that's what is being kind of sold into the retailers. A/B testing.
Thanks.
I was just going to say, I mean, again, I really love the sort of journey that you've been on and looking at it. And clearly there's sort of huge efficiency improvements that it's sort of made along the way. But I was kind of also curious, clearly the experience for respondents has improved with it. It looks better.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that's also translated into better quality of data on the other side? Is that something that you can see as you've gone through those changes?
It's a really good question. We have validated it at certain points through the years. I mean, just gut feel, yes, I think it is more accurate. But also as a result, we have much better relationships with the retailers, so we can do more validation now. Whereas before, it would have been quite a stretch to ask for that data from Tesco or from Kroger or from whoever. So yeah, my gut feel is it is better, but I know that we validated it in the past and it has been pretty accurate as well. Yeah. Great.
Well, Charlotte, thank you for showing us your world.
Thank you.